Welcome to Ask GMBN Tech. This is our weekly Q&A show. You get to ask questions related to technical stuff with mountain bikes, and hopefully we give you those answers that you need. So if you want to get involved, email us on the email address on the bottom of the screen there. Make sure you use that hashtag AskGMBNTech, or alternatively, just get involved in the conversation below in the comments. A spoke related question from Mojo33. Andrew, correct me, that sounds weird if you're saying that. I'm going to say it myself. Doddy, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't straight pull spokes harder to tighten once they're assembled to wheel with tyre installed? Doesn't some of them spin when tightening? I haven't seen straight pull hubs with grooves or notches to prevent this. It would be better if they were on spokes as well. It'll catch by both parts to prevent spinning. Okay, Mojo33, yeah, you're kind of along the right line. So straight pull spokes, there are actually two types. There's bladed and then there's round. Now, if you've got bladed spokes, you might think that they're only for road bikes, but they are in fact for mountain bikes as well, because they can add strength at no additional weight. They're stronger fore and aft, and they offer a bit of flex side to side. Now, if you've got bladed spokes, there is a tool like this one from Park, designed specially to hold, obviously there's different sizes here, different options for different style spokes. Hold the spoke still, adjust the nipple, nothing moves, job done. However, if you've got a round spoke, then you're not going to be able to use a tool like that. So in an ideal world, when the wheel is put together, there'll be some sort of assembly compound, which is essentially grease with particles in there to increase friction and traction, I guess, at the head of the spoke there. That would be used and of course then cleaned off so you can't get any braking surfaces. But if yours hasn't got that, then you need to look at that other end. So where the nipple screws onto the thread on the end of the spoke itself, get some penetrating oil like some 3-in-1 or even a decent chain oil and let it drip its way in there and work its way in, and you'll find that you should hopefully be able to do this, because there's way less sort of torque at this end than there is that's already on the end of the spoke that's in the part of the hub itself. You'll find that they're generally quite wedged in there, and if you can make it easier for yourself on the threaded end, you should be able to adjust it. But obviously that doesn't always happen, and sometimes you're going to get a spinny spoke. So I had to look this up because I've not actually had this problem that hasn't been on a bladed spoke in the past. And you can actually get a tool. This is it on screen now. It's quite a specialist tool, and it looks a bit like a cable tensioning tool from Park Tools, something like this in fact. It looks a little bit like this. It has this section on here, in which case it would hold the spoke itself. Of course you couldn't use this, it's not designed for that purpose, but it's quite a specific tool to get, and I'm not sure it's actually the best thing. In my eyes, I would probably just get a pair of pliers on it and hold it, but of course I wasn't too sure about that because I haven't done it. So I actually buzzed Calvin from Park Tools, and this is what Calvin said. He goes, yeah, it's a tough one, just grab the thing. If it's stainless steel, straight up, use pliers and hold them tight. You will not mar the spoke. Again, I think he's emphasising the point, if you let it slip, then the spoke can twist and get scarred on the inside there. He said, the specials made tools do the same job and in theory offer better leverage. Painted spokes will get marred if you grab gently and turn. Make sure you grab tightly, even on painted spokes. So it goes to show you can use pliers, but of course you've got to make sure that the spoke cannot turn, and then you should be okay. So if that's your problem, then hopefully that's a solution. Good luck. Next question is from Nixabis. Hi Dolly, can you tell me if having a spare tube in my backpack for tubeless makes any sense? I've often heard that we have to have one in case of a big tear or if we smash the valve, etc. But my tyre is full of bramble thorns. My tube will die instantly and inflating if I have to use one. Well, yeah, really, you should always be carrying one as a spare part when you're going on longer rides. You could end up using it, your friend could end up using it, or you might bump into a fellow mountain biker that needs one. Given how much they cost and how much they weigh, it's worth carrying one anyway. But if your tyres have got loads of brambles and thorns and stuff stuck in them, then really you should be addressing this before you go riding, because sooner or later with your tubeless, they're going to work into bigger holes and might be a hole that your tubeless solution is not going to seal properly. So it creates a problem in the long run. So what we always recommend doing here at GMBN Tech is when you wash your bike, or even when you just return home from a bike, give it a bit of a once over, run it around with an Allen key, make sure everything obvious is tight, your controls, all the safety related things on there. Check your chain is clean and lubed, make sure you haven't got any frayed cables that are going to get worse, and give your tyres an inspect. Make sure there's no slashes in them, and any sort of brambles and thorns and stuff that are in them, take them out. Get them out, erase the problem before it becomes one, because it will become a bit of a nightmare. But also, just on that point, there's other things you can do with inner tubes. So let's just say you or your friends are unlucky enough to break an arm. You can do a make-do sling using an inner tube. It's a pretty versatile thing. And if your friend, for example, say, I don't know, breaks a chain, you can use the inner tube as a make-do tow rope to get them along, or her along, a section of trail without having to walk. Perhaps if you get down to a fire road, you can cover greater ground to get back to civilization in order to fix that problem. You can use it as a tow rope. And of course, you can use it in other repairs as well, like for lashing things together. I don't know, like if your saddle's snapped off the rails, you can lash it on with a inner tube, tighten a knot, job done. So yeah, I think it's always worth carrying one, and I definitely think you should go back to your tyres and get all those thorns out. Make it easy for yourself in the long run. Okay, next up is from Paul Byrne. Hi Doddy, do you reduce air pressure in your shocks and tubeless tyres when travelling by plane? I'm off to Rotorua at Christmas and have heard mixed views. Cheers, and hopefully see you guys in Oz and New Zealand someday soon. Generally I do, but not by much, and it's more a fact of, in the past I've got quite big bikes and it tends to be to get them in the bags themselves. Our latest bags actually are big enough I don't need to do it anymore, but typically with a 29er, like that Nukeproof Mega in the XL is massive. And when I took it out to Whistler last year, I had to deflate the forks in order to get the whole front end in the actual bike bag. And in tyres, same thing, 29-inch wheels, and my older bike bag didn't cater for 29-inch wheels, so I had to deflate them slightly in order to put them in. But I'd never deflate too much because it makes it a bit of a chore if they come unseated and the tubeless sealant goes everywhere. So generally, I wouldn't. And actually, you don't really need to, despite what the airlines will tell you. I'm not really sure why they tell you to do it, but the plane is pressurised. Like the storage area, the cargo area is pressurised. There's no need to actually do this. But I did have a look online about this because I did want to know a little bit more despite what the airlines say. And just talking about pressure in the atmosphere. So planes fly at a highest of 12 kilometres, that's about 7.5 miles. And at sea level, air pressure is 14.7 psi. And it lowers with elevation. I think at 10,000 feet, it's about 10 psi. So if I understand in theory, your tyre pressure can raise by the atmospheric pressure difference. So let's say it was at 50 psi at ground zero sort of thing, where you're up top there, it can increase by, at 10,000 feet by 10 psi. So that would be outside the plane, of course, in an unpressurized environment. So you're talking a nominal amount. At the most, it's going to be 14.7 psi as a maximum. Which if my rubbish science is correct, that's nothing critical, nothing to worry about. And yeah, I definitely hope to make it over to your side of the pond at some point, especially New Zealand actually. Australia, I've been pretty close before, and I definitely want to visit there. It's definitely on my places to visit, but I really want to come to Rotorua when Crankworks is on and see that gong show, see it. I've seen Crankworks in Europe, I've seen Crankworks at Whistler. I want to see how it's done in New Zealand. And if I fly over, then I definitely won't be letting my shock and fork and tyres down. I'll leave them as they are, thank you. So there you go. Actually, if anyone actually genuinely knows or are good with mathematics and stuff about what does happen in pressurised environments with tyre pressures, shock pressures, I would love to know, because I've tried to have a bit of a look at this and it makes no sense to me. I think my rudimental version kind of makes sense. So if anyone does know, let us know in the comments. Really interested to know. Be kind. Next question's from Blake Ashdown. Ask GMBN Tech. I've got two questions. Hopefully you'll know this lot, but my bottom bracket's creaking. I've removed it, cleaned it, re-greased it and replaced it. It's worked for about one ride and now it's back to creaking. Should I just start working on it or keep going until it stops? And second question, what does boost do? Example, boost wheels. All right, firstly, let's look at the bottom bracket. So of course, with this sort of thing, it's definitely the age-old thing of having to do the process of elimination to work out exactly what it is. But suggesting by saying that you've taken your bottom bracket out and put it back in that process it's been temporarily cured. So that tells me that it's probably not the bottom bracket itself that was creaking. I suspect it's something else like a crank or some other part that you tightened or adjusted in putting it back on. Now you haven't said exactly what sort of bottom bracket it is. If it was a press fit bottom bracket, there's a good chance those cups could be creaking in the frame, in which case you want to use a press fit retaining compound. That with assuming everything is cleaned and there's nothing damaged, that will cure the problem, at least until the bottom bracket is dead. If you've got a bottom bracket, for example, with a tapered axle on there, then it's probably the crank that is at fault, because the soft aluminium crank against the steel axle, if it is ridden loose, it can stretch and it will never tighten properly. And of course, any metal to metal movement you're going to get translates into creaking at some point. So that could be it. But also check your pedals, check your chainring bolts, check the chainring directly onto the crank if it's direct mount, check every single part. And then of course there can be other parts of the bike that creak under torque that you can confuse with the bottom bracket. I mean, it does sound like you do know your way around a bike, so I'm not trying to patronise here, but there's a lot of parts on a bike that can creak you would never realise. It can even be saddle rails that you don't notice if you're stood up, but you notice when you're sat down. And you might not be thinking about that because you concentrate so hard on one part of the bike. It could be your seat collar, it could be the free hub body on your rear hub, and it can even be, and I've had this before, a rear derailleur where it's been the tiniest bit loose on the hanger bolt into the frame, and that creaks, but only creaks under a certain amount of crank tension and torque. It's confused the hell out of me in the past. So just make sure you've checked everything, because there definitely will be a cure for it. And of course the final one is if your actual bottom bracket is knackered and somehow it was just masked by grease or something when you put it in. It might just be a bottom bracket that's knackered. So good luck with that one. It's a horrible thing to have to work around and try, and in a kind of weird way, I actually really like trying to find those creaks because it bugs the hell out of me and I really want to stop them. As for your question about boost, boost essentially is a slightly wider platform. So up front, hubs used to be 100 millimeters, boost is 110. And that basically compensates, gives you a bit more clearance, but it doesn't really do too much up front. It's out back it makes the big difference. So conventional rear hubs were 135 millimeters or 142. Boost is 148. So although it's only a nominal amount at the back of the bike, it enables the cranks to be very slightly further apart. You get that better chain line, you get more clearance around the bottom bracket. Arguably a frame can be stiffer because it's got a wider stance there. And of course, wheel manufacturers can build stronger wheels because they can put the flanges on the wheels further apart, which means the spokes have a better bracing angle, so it's more of a pyramid. So there's lots of benefits to have boost, but don't worry, just if your bike hasn't got boost, it's not going to suddenly not ride well. There's nothing wrong with non-boost stuff, it's just boost is a logical progression to have on any bikes you have moving forwards down the line. Our last question this week's from Philip Ow, or Ooh. GMBN Tech. The problem that I have that wasn't addressed in the video, the video by the way is looking after your riding kit, is how to dry out the hydration packs properly post-washing. There always seems to be a bit of water left behind. Yeah, there's a couple of ways you can do this. Personally, I roll mine out, and then when I put it in the fridge, it kind of doesn't really matter if there's a few drops in there. But of course, having it completely dry is the best way for no bacteria to grow in the first place. So have a look on screen. This is a specific dryer. So it's basically like a coat hanger for your hydration pack. You put it inside, it springs out, opens it all out, and you can hang it upside down. And it enables all of the water to evaporate. And then of course you want to make sure it's treated with either some sort of sterilising fluid like a Milton baby bottle cleaner, or bung it in a fridge or freezer to make sure any of that is killed or stays nice and cold. So there we go, there's another Ask GMBN Tech session in the bag. Hopefully I've answered some of your questions. If you've got any questions, let us know in those comments below, and if you're an expert on altitude and air pressure, I'd definitely love to know your response to the earlier question as well. For a couple more great tech related videos, click down here on repairing a tubeless tyre puncture, and click down here on everything you need to know about selecting and replacing a chain and cassette. As always, don't forget to click on GMBN Tech to subscribe, and of course if you love mountain bikes and tech, give us a thumbs up.